What's up, you guys? SlimXTeamSymmetry here, bringing you guys another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm here to finally talk about vampires. Now, first off, you guys should know, don't ever pay attention to these templates I use for decks. A lot of times they're not something I came up with. Once again, I took this from Core TCG. They had an article on it. Robbie wrote an article on vampires. And I basically used that website to get some knowledge about the deck, to learn about the deck, because I honestly know nothing about this deck, you guys. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about it. I was under the impression it was going to use Vampire Lord and some other crazy stuff, but it seems that that hasn't happened yet. I really don't know how competitive this deck is. It seems really cool for the things it can do. I think a lot of the cool things the deck has, like, I think this card is really ridiculous, like Shadow Vampire. The main cards that I wanted to focus on were Shadow Vampire, Vampire Duke, the Vampire Sorcerer, the Vampire Kingdom, and of course the Trap card. Those are all the main cards I want to talk about. So before I get into like my analysis of it, I'll just talk about those cards. So Shadow Vampire is a level 5. Like, a lot of these are level 5, and a lot of people are gonna be like, that's really a problem. It kind of is, it kind of isn't. I see that you can do some really cool plays. Like, Transmodify was in this deck, Robbie said, because you could Transmodify a Goblin Zombie, get a Search, and you'd be able to summon Shadow Vampire. You'd be able to summon another vampire, so you'd be able to, start your XYZ plays, because your main XYZ is a rank 5 Crimson Knight, the Vampire Bram. So it's a really interesting card. I'll talk about that card as well, but I'll start with the basics. So Shadow Vampire, when it's normal summon, you special summon one Dark Vampire from your hand or deck, except Shadow Vampire. If you do, the monster cannot attack for the rest of the turn. This card cannot. You can only XYZ summon for Dark monsters. That's, it's very basic. So that's really cool. So basically, you're making a lot of rank 5s. Like, your main ones are like Adrius and Crimson Knight Vampire Bram. So those are really cool cards. Vampire Duke, another level 5. Basically the same thing. When this card is normal summon, you can target one Dark Vampire in your graveyard, special summon that target phase of defense position. Basically, it's like a Blizzard. You guys remember Black Wings? It's like a Blizzard. You summon it, you get a one face up, and when this card is special summoned, you can declare a monster spell or trap just like Vampire Lord, and you can make your opponent send that from their deck to the graveyard. So that's where Transmodify kind of shines, is that you can go summon Goblin Zombie, activate Transmodify, use Transmodify to get Vampire Duke, and then since it was special summoned, you're able to knock a card out of your opponent's deck. That's really good. A lot of people don't know what to call. Best thing to really call is spells. Like, if you're playing against a deck that runs minimal spells, like say Dragon Rulers, they do run like ravines and swords, but knocking out their spells is really, really important. So I like that a lot. That does give you an option with Transmodify. So Vampire Duke's really cool. 2000, basically you're going to make your rank 5s, but it's a really cool card. This is another card I'm not really going to talk about that much. This card was in the list. I think this is an old card, I'm not sure, but when this level 5 or higher zombie type monster special summon to your side of the field by the effect of a zombie type monster, you can pay 2000, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, and you can only use its effect once per turn. And once per turn, you're able to do, once again, declare monster, spell, or trap, and basically nuke your opponent's deck. So one thing I noticed early on about these vampire cards is that they do one very simple thing. Since vampires like to suck blood, basically you're sucking the blood out of your opponent's deck by knocking out monster, spell, or traps when they're special summoned and when they use their effects. So that's really cool. Being able to knock cards out of your opponent's deck before they even get the chance to use them is really good. Like, don't ever call monsters against dragons. You're putting them in the grave for them. But if you call spells or traps, hit them where it hurts. So that's really, really important. That's what I like about this deck a lot. And also, like, play against spellbooks, call monsters, get rid of their damn Blue Boy, get rid of the Priestess, get rid of monsters so that cards like Fate and cards like Masters can't resolve. So that's really cool. So Vampire Sorcerer, it's your level 4. So this is your normal summon. If this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by opponent's card effect, by battle, or an effect, you can add a Dark Vampire monster or a spell or trap to your hand. And you're able to then banish this card from your graveyard, and one dark vampire monster you normal summon this turn can be summoned without tributing. So that's really cool. So you can banish this, and you can just normal summon one of these guys, and you can get Shadow Vampire's effect off. So that's really cool. So the whole deck works in conjunction with summoning each other. Some things I definitely include. I do like the zombie engine in the deck. I think it's pretty solid. I don't like that there's no plague in here. Like, that disturbs me a lot. For sure that must have been an error, because Plague is just so good in this deck. Like, why wouldn't you run Plague, especially since you can run 2? So that's definitely something to include. But those are the main monsters I want to talk about. Shadow Vampire, Vampire Duke, and the Sorcerer. Basically, these guys are going to make your rank 5s. You're going to use them to peck away your opponent's cards. You're going to use other cards like Grace and Sorcerer to work out your combos, and it works out pretty nicely. Now on to one of the main spells. So Vampire Kingdom. It's a field card. Zombie type monsters gain 500 during damage calculation only. That's pretty good. Being able to get around problematic monsters like Stardust Spark Dragon, it cannot negate in the damage step. So that's really important that you during damage calc you run over that monster. Once per turn, when a card is sent from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, you're able to target one card on the field and one dark vampire monster from your hand, and you're able to send one dark vampire monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, destroy that target. So basically, when you use the effect of, say, Vampire Duke or Grace or the XYZ that lets you send a monster spell or trap from their deck to the grave, you then can select a card and you target. You send one dark vampire from your hand or deck, and then you're able to knock. You're able to knock a card on the field. I think what's really important is it makes the monsters pretty strong, makes them at least 500 points stronger. So that's really good. So this is a really key card in the deck, and you are able to search it off of Sorcerer. So that's really important getting this card. The last card to talk about is Vampire Takeover. So this is their Melon Trap card. It says if you have no card in your field card zone and all face-up monsters you control, minimal 1 or zombie type monsters, you can activate one Vampire Kingdom directly from your deck. So directly from your deck, you're able to directly go into your deck and activate Vampire Kingdom. You can then special summon one dark vampire monster from your graveyard and face up defense position. You can only activate Takeover once per turn. So this is a card you can use when you're really out of options. You flip this card, you activate a kingdom, and then you get a vampire back from the graveyard. And then if you're able to tribute for another vampire, you're able to, start your combos off again. So those are the main cards I want to talk about, and then just the XYZ before I get into my little analysis of it. So Crimson Knight Vampire Bram is level 5. You need 2 level 5 zombies. These are all zombies. You can detach one XYZ material from this card, then target a monster in your opponent's graveyard. Special summon that target to your side of the field. But if you do, only that monster can attack the rest of the turn. You can only use this effect of Crimson Knight once per turn. During your standby phase in the next turn after this card you controlled was destroyed by your opponent's card effect, either by battle or card effect, and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it from the graveyard in face-up defense position. So this card basically can come back. It's a 25 beater, and it does have the ability to steal an opponent's monster, so that's really cool. So that's basically like the whole conjunction of the deck. I don't think there's, double checking if there's anything else I wanted to mention. These other XYZs are not as important right now, but those are the main cards I want to focus on. So what I feel is good about this deck. What feels good about this deck is it is a combo-based deck, and it lets you really, utilize zombies. Like I said, you know what, this is really egging me, so I'm going to put Plague in here just because this is egging me so much. Plague needs to be in the deck. Alright, so ignore the 42 card cow, and I'd probably cut a Maxi and something just to main deck that card. You have to main deck Plague. For God's sake, you can freaking Wing Blast with it. It's broken. You can mill it off 6 cents if your opponent doesn't roll a 5 or a 6. Card's just really good. What I like about this deck is that it does have a lot of conjunction with the Mizukis and with the Goblin Zombies, with the whole zombie engine as a whole. I'd probably even throw in Zombie Master. I like that card too. So what I like is it gives a new element to zombies. I like that these monsters are they're pretty powerful. I feel that with Vampire Kingdom, being able to bring out 2,500 beaters, being able to bring out, they're mostly 2,500 beaters, 2,500 beaters, and that's really big because getting over problematic monsters is important. You can even make your little puny Vampire Sorcerer a 2,000, so that's really important. I feel that they have good support for themselves so far. I feel it could be better, but, maybe in time it will be. Having your own field card that lets you, pop cards, lets you send cards is really good. Being able to literally come back from nothing with Vampire Takeover is really cool. So I think the deck by itself is a good deck. It's not anything I'd consider tier 1. I consider it a really fun deck. I consider it a combo-based deck. But I feel that good zombie players can utilize a lot of these cards and use them to their advantage when it comes to XYZ plays and doing zombie combos. So that's what I really like about the deck. And what I feel is bad about the deck. What I feel is bad about the deck is that, it seems slow to me. To me, it feels that it takes about a turn or two to set up, and by then dragons and other decks can just, kind of overpower you. But, at the same time, dragons being the best deck right now makes it kind of hard to, figure out what the best decks are going to be next format. But I feel that it's a little slow, and that it can get hit pretty hard if you do put monsters to defense position, because with 0 defense, these guys don't really have a leg to stand on. So, that could be a problem, but, only time will tell, how this deck will do. That's what I feel is bad about it. It can get hit by some things, and then, You know, like if they can't bring out like level 5 or higher, like Ophion would just like destroy this deck, then it'd be very hard for the opponent to get around this. So that's just one problem I see with the deck. And then what's Yu-Gi-Oh about this deck? I'd say what's Yu-Gi-Oh about this deck is the fact that you can finally use vampires. You can finally use vampires with zombies, and you can basically rip apart your opponent's deck by these monsters' effects, being able to send monster spell or traps from their deck to the grave. And if you're a good player, you know what to call based on what deck you're playing. Like I said before, if the deck runs minimal spells, get rid of the spells. If it runs minimal monsters, get rid of the monsters. You know, get rid of key cards and you'll probably be ahead in the game. So that's what I really like about it. I think the deck has potential. It's just going to take the right player and the right strategy to make the deck work. But please leave your comments below. Do you have a good build of this deck? Like, in the sense, would you make it based around synchroing with Plague Spreader? Would you make it based around Mizuki, Goblin Zombie, Zombie Master? Would you make it more zombie based? Would you make it more vampire based? Is there anything that I'm not thinking of in this deck? There probably is because I don't know a lot about it. Do you think Transmodify is a good card for the deck? Do you think it's a bad card for the deck? This is just a deck. I'll even link the article below just to give you guys a general idea of how the deck works, so you guys can understand some basics. But I really think this deck is cool, and I just wanted to bring this video to you guys. I promised you I would, and I'm pretty sure someone will come up with something really cool for this deck. So that's pretty much all I got to say. Comment below with other decks you want me to profile here on the Good, the Bad, and the Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'll definitely be bringing them to you soon. So thumbs up for Vampires, and thank you for watching.